All right, now to give perspectives to this, we have in the studio an estate developer and CEO, Michelle Homes Limited, Dr. Baraka Michelia, to talk about this. Thank you so much for joining us on Deep Break.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So let's begin with your assessment of the housing issue in Nigeria. I don't know whether to call it housing crisis or what, generally. What's your perspective?
Okay, I can tell you categorically that yes, it's very true that there is high deficits in housing, especially in Nigeria. And actually, I can also tell you that there are many factors that have actually created that indices, and it's actually it's growing in number every day, and actually the capacity and capability of people to buy these houses, it's growing and diminishing day by day. There are many factors which has contributed to these things, which include, I think, poverty rate. You see, the truth of the matter is, with the high cost of living in Nigeria, you cannot afford normal civil servant who earns basically 80 to 100,000 to be able to buy a house within a city center. Reason behind it is because if you look at it, the cost of building materials keep getting high on a daily basis, and the cost of construction, it's getting high. Building materials are growing every day. Nothing is getting cheaper in Nigeria. Eventually, it will translate into high cost in housing, and therefore you realize that people's capacity to be able to buy these houses or homes, it's actually depreciating, and you could see that it is actually one of the topmost need of mankind, which is housing. And I can tell you of a truth that it's growing worst daily because our economy doesn't get better. The issue kept deteriorating day by day, and hence I'm afraid of what the future would hold for housing.
Mr. Michelia,
yes.
You said the deficit is growing daily. That is true.
Yes.
However, the real estate sector is also growing.
Yes.
And the concern is that despite the fact that it is growing, as the real estate sector is growing, it appears that that's how the demand or the deficit in housing is growing. As a matter of fact, in the second quarter of last year, the real estate sector in Nigeria grew by 3.8%, the highest in about 6 years.
Yes.
So why is it that as the real estate sector is growing, the deficit is growing? Why is that so?
Okay, I can tell you categorically that, number one, the rate at which people give birth is increasing more than the ability to provide these houses. So if you could calculate the number of birth rate compared to the number of houses provided on daily basis, it keeps increasing in this order, and you will realize that there is no way, if you calculate the number of people that have these houses, or we are building, we are coming in to bridge the gap in
Some persons will say most people in the real estate sector are looking at a particular population of Nigeria, and that is why this deficit is growing.
Not necessarily, because the truth of the matter is we build with money. We calculate this cost. Eventually, we are not just there to serve charity. We are there to also make money, at the same time provide housing for people. So if the rate at which it's growing, if you cannot provide a house and make profit, why should you go into it? So, and things don't get better. That's the truth. Things don't get better. That is one factor. The second factor I can tell you is that, yes, the real estate developer sector is growing daily, agreed. But at the same time, the number of people who take these houses are also on the increase. There is high demand for housing. Eventually, it will cause a high cost of buying these properties.
So, if I understand you, Doctor, affordable housing is what we are focusing on. Are you saying that affordable housing is beyond the reach of an ordinary Nigerian as we have it because of the indices, because of the rising cost of things, or what?
Now, yes, I will tell you that it is true, as well as government is bridging the gap through National Housing Fund. But I can tell you that one of the things we are experiencing on a daily basis is that though there is high demand and the high rate of demand in the housing sector cannot be catered, cannot be provided for the ordinary Nigerian. Reason behind this, if you look at the GDP of Nigeria, that is the standard living of people, you realize that they don't have money. They don't have what it takes to be able to get these facilities. It's a general problem, but it boils down to housing because...
Is it that, okay, what is making the houses so expensive? What is it that is making the houses so expensive? Let me repeat that question.
The cost of land is inclusive, especially in places like Abuja. Before you could get a land within the city center, you will have to have nothing less than 30 million naira within the city center. Now, if you look at the average Nigerian, in fact, the average Nigerian earns at least an average of 100,000 on a monthly basis. An average Nigerian, take statistics. Now, calculate that salary in 1 year. It's just 1.2 million. 1.2 till in 30 years, he cannot even be able to buy a land. If he goes to places like Gwagwalada, where he can be able to get a house for as low as 10 to 15 million naira, where will he gather that money? At what point will he be able to have house? Now, the cost of transportation...
Even in Gwagwalada, he will not be able to get it.
Of course, that's the truth.
Now, that takes us back to the National Housing Fund.
Yes.
How easy is it for an average Nigerian to access that fund?
Now, the truth of the matter is, it's easy, it's not easy. Why did I say it's easy? The government is willing to dispose this money. But you see, even when they dispose this money, it takes time to construct. They need to find reliable developers, people who are competent. Over time, if you look at the statistics of the number of houses that has been delivered by these developers, it is actually on the decrease because inflation sets in consistently. So if you're being approved 10 million naira to be able to build 3-bedroom, maybe terrace or block of flats, as the case may be, in a period of 6 months, you realize that inflation hits you hard and you cannot be able to deliver with that money. That is one factor. The second factor is insincerity. The truth of the matter is there are many insincere people that if you give them money to do this, they will divert the money, use it for another thing. And the rest is case. ICPC, EFCC, you realize that developers scatter with people's money. We have such experience. You cannot shy away that it is actually a problem. The National Housing Fund provide this money, even though the period and the system has been so strict that it takes a while. I remember there are some of my clients who wanted to access these funds. It takes almost a year to be able to access these funds for them. And
we've had several, aside from the National Housing Fund, we have several housing schemes that have been operated here in Nigeria. Have they yielded? I mean, are we close to getting the desired result?
Honestly, let me be truthful to you. There are many policies and housing schemes that have come up over the years. But the truth of the matter is they have not been able to achieve its purpose because of corruption. The truth of the matter is we are in this society, we can't shy away from it. If you call me to give me a contract to build these houses, how many people will be honest to make sure they deliver? And even with that, the people that give the contract will always require a huge amount of kickbacks. At the end of the day, the product or the house at the end will not be received by people. I remember in early 2 years ago, the government opened up a scheme to be able to provide, you can be able to buy a house for 2 million naira. How many people will they show us these houses that has been able to be built, and how many people are living in these places? It came as a scheme. Money was released, dispersed. We saw project have started. What did you hear after then? You're a journalist. You should tell me better.
All right. At the moment, we have 28 million houses, the housing deficit in the country.
Yes.
For this year, just about 3 weeks ago, the Bank of Industry said that Nigeria will need about 21 trillion to bridge that gap.
Yes.
And in the budget, only 470 billion was budgeted for 2022.
Yes.
Now, how is the private sector coming in to help the federal government bridge this housing gap?
Of course, we are trying our best. And that is why we are in the limelight today, because in our own, we've been able to provide people the opportunity. It starts day by day. The concept of real estate developers coming in to bridge the gap in the housing sector starts with the little capital they have. And that is what they will be able to provide for civil servants, business people to be able to own a house. For us, we start by selling lands, and then we help you build gradually. We partner with you to be able to build gradually. These are some of the things housing.
Well, you guys are not cheap.
We are cheap. For you can get a plot for as low as 2-3 million within areas like Kiami, Aviation Village. It's a very good area.
For an average civil servant in Nigeria, you say 2-3 million.
Exactly.
Is that still cheap?
Is that cheap?
Now, that is what we are saying. If the government increases, what is the minimum wage today? If you look at the minimum wage and the average person who earns cannot actually be, that was why I answered the question. I said it's somehow possible, it's somehow not possible. But that is the best you can get anywhere within Abuja. That is the truth. If you go to places outside Gogolada, I can tell you that a plot of land within Gogolada is as high as 10 million naira outside the city center.
Okay, so now let's
Yes.
talk about, should we be having some kind of regulation, like some kind of price control for renting a house? Let's even talk about renting a house.
Yes.
You know, in the federal capital, for instance, or
Yes.
some of the urban centers.
Yes.
You know, if you look at the rent, is quite high. And these are not houses that are new. These are sometimes old houses.
Yeah.
But you find that it's like the older the house, the higher the, the amount you pay for. You know, so should we be having some kind of regulation? And, how seriously are we really taking this?
The truth is that regulation cannot work.
Why?
The reason behind it is that if you buy a car now, and then you've used it for a while, who has the right to come and tell you how much you would sell that car afterwards? You've made investment. Property is one thing that people love to invest, and nobody will want the price of his property to depreciate over time. So if it is you now, you have a house, you bought a land, for instance, 10 years ago in places like Guzapi, maybe Asokoro for 20 million naira, you invested 20 million naira to build, and you're looking at making a rental income of 2 million naira per annum. And someone comes back and say, you should rent it for 500, 700,000. It's not going to work. Putting regulation to this thing, because the cost of getting it is also high.
Okay, you've talked about the cost of land, and I know that government owns virtually all the land, right?
Very true.
So why is it that the cost of land cannot be reduced?
The truth of the matter is, who gets the land? That's the question. The people that get the land sell at a high cost.
Does the government give it out at a cheaper rate?
The truth of the matter is not cheap. Because even before you get it, why don't you have a land now that government gives you? Why don't you have? Why don't I have? We all buy from people who have been allocated 10 years ago, and none of them have developed it. So we come to buy from them after the land has increased in value and development sets in. Let me tell you one of the things government will do to be able to reduce housing costs in Nigeria. One of it, you cannot shy away, is infrastructure. If the infrastructure of a place is good, you realize that development will go there very easily. People can have access to these places. Number two is to increase the standard of living of the people. If you have the money, if you leave this country, for instance, as many want to live, if you leave this country and have money, you will come back and want to stay, because your standard of living is above the ability to spend what you will eat, where you will live, the clothes you will wear. You'll be able to afford it better.
All right.
These are the indices that will help us to be able to achieve.
All right.
things.
So, well, thank you so much. It's a good place to end the discussion. We appreciate you coming on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives with us on the issue of Nigeria's housing deficit. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.